The majority of flight training is free. Ooh, you might be telling yourself, what are you talking about? If you knew how much money I am in the hole, I'll say that again. The majority of flight training is free. So what do I mean? If we think about flight training, the whole process of flight training, what are you going to spend, or what should you be spending your time on more than anything? Studying on your own time, not in an airplane and not with your instructor, or in an airplane and with your instructor? What do you think is the way a good flight training program should go? And the answer is, you should always, when going through flight training, spend a lot more time on your own, meaning put in a lot more minutes, hours on your own at home than you do with your instructor and or the airplane. You know, I tell people, if the only time in your flight training journey that you're thinking about airplanes and about weight and balance and about navlogs and about the ACS, if the only time that you're thinking about these things is when you're with your instructor or when you're in the airplane, you are going to spend a lot of money that you don't otherwise have to be spending on flight training. And not only money, you're spending a lot more time to make these things happen than it otherwise should. I don't know if people understand, student pilots, I know this for a fact, student pilots don't understand that, like I said before, most of flight training, again, we agreed a moment ago that most of your flight training journey should be time spent on your own, with yourself, at home, going over material, reading, studying, watching YouTube videos, whatever it might be, right? That's the majority of your flight. If we took all of your flight training journey, okay, let's say you started your January and you're finished. Let's take anyone's flight training journey. You started in January and you finished in September, so 9 months. If we went through every hour of the day of those 9 months, if it's a good flight training journey, the way it should happen, we will find that the student, if we added up all the hours that the students spend on their own time and added up all the hours that the students spent with the instructor or in the airplane, the hours that the students spent on their own time at home should be way more hours than the hours they spent with their instructor at the flight school, blah, blah, blah. Like, we should find that the time the student was thinking about flight training, thinking about airplanes, thinking about weather, learning weather, figuring out navlogs, popping out navlogs like hotcakes, right? Figuring out how to do it, watching videos. We should find that those amount of hours, that amount of time is quadruple, I'm just throwing a number out there, than the amount of time that student spent with their instructor or at the flight school or in the airplane, okay? Don't get me wrong, instructor and airplane time are unbelievably important, especially when you first start out. Because you have no clue what's going on. You don't know how to spend or what to spend your time on at home. Very important. But as time goes on in your flight training journey, you should be spending more and more and more and more time with yourself going over the material. Because at some point, your instructor reaches a point where there's really not much they could do on your end to cement a topic into your brain. Meaning, I could show you how to do something. I could explain it on a whiteboard. I could do all that 10 times. Eventually, we reach a point where after the 10th time, and I'm exaggerating, you should never reach 10 times, but we reach a point where eventually me saying it and showing it again does very little, meaning I'm not showing you anything new. I've showed you everything. Then why is it not sticking? Because you're probably not spending the time on your own, taking ownership and an active role in the training process in order to make sure that you understand that topic. So the time a student spends on their own, the majority of the time during flight training, should be on their own. And let me break something to you. That time that you spend with you is free. It is free. It doesn't cost you a dime. So isn't this great news? The majority of the hours that you put in during flight training cost you nothing. It's free. Now, here's the better news. The cool thing about this is that not only the time you spend with you is free. Here's a cool thing you should take away from this. The more time you spend with yourself for free, the less time you'll need to spend with your instructor and or the airplane for a lot of money. It's an amazing, cool thing how that works if you think about that. So if you're going through flight training, and I'll say this again like I opened the video, the majority of your flight training journey and process is free. It doesn't cost you anything. It shouldn't. Now, the majority of your flight training process will cost you a lot if the only time you spend thinking and studying airplanes and flying is when you're with your instructor. And sadly, many students do that. But the majority of your flight training process, the majority of the time invested that your brain spends reading, thinking, studying, watching material, learning material, should be on your own time at home. And that is free. And the more time you spend for free on your own, the less time and money you'll end up spending with your instructor. It's just the way it works. So like I said before, when you first start out, sure, 90% of your airplane thinking, especially in the very, very beginning, will be with your instructor, either in or out of the plane. So when it comes to the ground stuff, you'll be talking with your instructor, and your instructor will show you hopefully here's what a POH is, here's what the ACS is, here's what a walk around looks like. And then obviously you'll also spend some time flying. But as time goes on and you get a better and better and better idea of what material this whole training process surrounds and involves, what type of things am I going to be expected to talk about and know on my check ride? What type of things am I expected to know and exercise and be able to do to be a safe pilot for the rest of my life? As time goes on in the training process, you will get a better and better and better idea of what those things are, allowing you to spend your time at home on those things. Unlike on day one when you showed up and you had no clue, what am I even supposed to look at? A month in, you probably have a pretty good idea of, oh, okay, here's a bunch of things my instructor introduced, and we will keep talking about them with my instructor. That doesn't end, but it will go from an introduction of a topic to learn the topic to eventually the only relationship or the only discussion that your instructor will have with you about that topic might be in a question and answer form. Hey, what does this mean? And if you give the answer, you guys move on. There's not a lot of teaching that happens towards the end. But that whole middle part, once the topic has been introduced and now you know what METARs are, and you know that every airport, for the most part, has a METAR, you could go home and study METARs. You could watch videos on METARs. You could make sure that when you show up to your session next time with your instructor and your instructor asks you to read a METAR, you read the METAR. It's amazing how this works. And it's completely free. Completely free. So this is a phenomenal thing that if you just don't realize it, you miss it, and you end up spending a lot of time and money for no good reason. And then you're frustrated and you can't figure out, why is this thing taking? Am I stupid? Why is this thing? You're not stupid. I'm not stupid. I know that I'm not saying this from an arrogant place, but the way I think of myself, I know I'm a smart guy. I'm a smart guy. And if I went through training this way, meaning thinking that the only time I could think and study planes is when my instructor's next to me, it would take me 10 years. So don't feel bad if you're going through the process and you are a smart guy or gal and it's taking you a long time, because if you don't realize that the way this process is designed and the way you'll be most successful is by spending time with yourself. If no one told you that to this moment, and I'm the first one, then let me be the one to break the news to you. The more time you spend on your own, studying, honing in, cementing the topics that your instructor introduced, or not even your instructor. Maybe your instructor never brought it up and talked about it. That's also not an excuse to not know it. Because the DPE on your check ride will not give a flip what your instructor taught you or didn't teach you. The check ride is literally a time in It's a moment in time in which you either demonstrate that you are a knowledgeable and safe pilot, or you don't. It's not a time where there's negotiation. Oh, my instructor didn't teach it to me. Yes, teach it to me. So keep this in mind. You're a smart person. You know a topic when you learn it, but maybe you just didn't know that a huge part of flight training is you needing to spend time with you at home alone. The good news is it's completely free. And like I said before, the more you do it, the less money and time you'll end up spending with your instructor on the airplane, because you won't need it. If I introduce the topic of METARs to you and you become obsessed at home with figuring out METARs and what the different codes mean and this is what the wind means and that's the visibility. If you become obsessed with that and I'm your instructor, how much more time do you think you and I will spend on METARs? Not much, right? We could now devote our time to other things, to maybe introduce new topics, which you'll then go home and become obsessed over those. So that's kind of how flight training should work. There should be an obsession on your part. There should be a frustration on your part when something you should know is not known to you. You should feel like, oh, I won't let this happen again. And then go home and make sure that moving forward, you know what you need to know. Kind of be hungry for it. That's the attitude. That's the healthiest attitude that a student pilot could have throughout their entire flight training process. And of course, there'll be some topics that you're naturally less drawn to than others. It makes you human, right? Some of us are into the maintenance topics in flight training. Others might be into meteorology, weather. Others might be into airplane performance, density, altitude. Naturally, by our natures, we will be drawn to and curious about different topics more than others, and that's fine. You probably have that, and that's totally normal, and you should cherish that, and you should dive deeper into the ones that you kind of connect with. That's amazing. But you should feel a general sense of obsession to figure out all of the material and the knowledge areas that you're expected to know, especially on your check ride, but really as a whole, how to be a safe pilot for the rest of your life. You should kind of be hungry going through your training process. That kind of should be the attitude, and you should be frustrated a little bit just to get you enough motivated to go home and learn it when something comes up that you should know and you don't. So I hope this video helps. It's just a thought that I had, but I think it's really important as I see more and more student pilots spend more money and time than they should and otherwise would if they really understood this concept and took it to heart, and made sure that the time they spend with themselves is triple, if not more, the amount of time they spend with their instructor. And you'll be amazed how that time in the plane and with your instructor will be minimized, because there's now no need to meet with your instructor all these times. Because every time you guys meet, you're on it. You're on it. Your instructor is just pleasantly surprised and happy. Whoa, this guy or gal is getting it. And we're moving, our progress is moving nicely towards the check ride. And you're in full control of that. You control the pace. This might be a whole other video, but you control the pace of your training. It's up to you. It's up to you, because if your instructor asks you a question and you know the answer, there's nothing to really do but to move on. So if you're not moving on, ask yourself, do I really have a control of the topics, or is there more learning to do? And you are in charge of that pace, of whether you're in charge of how prepared or not prepared you show up to every single one of your sessions. You are in charge of that, not your instructor. You are in charge of that. So if you've never heard any of this, I'm honored that I'm able to be the one to break this news to you. If you did hear and you forgot about it and you said, yeah, I should make more time, but I'm not, I challenge you, make more time, schedule time with yourself. I talk about it in other videos, but really it's free. And the more you do it, the less money and time you'll spend out there, and you'll be done with your check ride before you know it. So I hope this helps. As always, if you have any question or topic or anything you want to watch me or hear me talk about, there's an email in the description below. Shoot me an email with your question or concern or whatever it is you want me to talk about it. I only ask in the subject line of the email, write Ask Yoel, so we're able to separate them and know that the email you sent me is for a topic that you want me to discuss here. All right, you guys, that's all I have for now. Until next time, fly safe and I'll see you on the next one. Take care, guys.